Let's join the Rivercats on a road trip, shall we? Taking on the AAA affiliate of the D-backs in the Reno Aces. Tyler Rogers, the 28-year-old submariner, getting the start for the Rivercats. And starting for the Reno Aces will be the right-hander Merrill Kelly, making his 11th start at the AAA level in the Rivercats lineup. In the two-hole, you have the best bat on the team so far this year in Connor Joe playing left field. So start things off top of the second. Rogers gets a ground out from Varsho. Ryder Jones shows off his arm over there at third base, and then Donovan Solano from the outfield grass makes a nice play. Also a very nice scoop from Gillespie over at first base. Victor Roach digs in at the plate for the Rivercats. Bottom half of the second, hits a ball opposite way, a line drive, but it dies out right at the track. We're still scoreless. Top of the fourth, Jake McCarthy going down on the outside slider. Looks at it, cannot believe the call, but he is down nonetheless. Bottom of the fourth now, Connor Joe at the plate. Yet another hard-hit ball for the Rivercats and right at somebody, so still scoreless. Top of the fifth, Christian Walker is going to hit a ball up the middle for the Aces. Base knock for them, so runner on first, one out now. Brings up Jazz Chisholm, who hits a ball up the middle, and Avellino just runs right past it because the fielding in this game strikes yet again. So runners on the corners, one out. And then Vargas would ground into a 4-6-3 double play. Tyler Rogers gets out of the jam. Still scoreless. Bottom of the fifth. Not for long. Mac Williamson connects on a pitch and sends it into the left field seats. It's now a 1-0 lead thanks to the solo shot off the bat of Williamson. Later in the inning, Donovan Solano draws himself a walk, so he's over on first. After that, Tyler Rogers, who can actually hit a little bit, comes to the plate. 2 outs. First pitch swinging, hits a ball hard down the left field line. It's knocked down by the third baseman. Tries to throw out Rogers, but he beats it out for an infield single. And then Avellino comes to the plate, hits a ball to right field. Everybody will move up one bag, so it's bases loaded for Connor Joe. 1-2 count. He goes whiffing on a slider, and they could not drive any more runs in. So it's still 1-0. Top of the sixth, Abraham Almonte hits the ball into right center field. That'll get up against the wall. Williamson fields, gets it into the cutoff man, but Almonte has himself an easy double. After that, the pitcher in Merrill Kelly lays down a sac bunt, so it's runner on third with one out. Top of the order now in Jake McCarthy. Grounds one over to first base. Gillespie steps in the bag, but the run does come in to score. So we're tied at 1 as Gillespie is at the plate now in the bottom half of the sixth. And he hits a ball right back up the middle for a base knock. So Gillespie over on first. After that, it brings up the catcher, Stephen Vogt, who has not hit well this season at all in AAA, but that does not stop him here from coming up big into the left center field gap. That'll get down, roll into the wall, and Gillespie scores all the way from first base, a 2-1 lead thanks to an RBI double from Stephen Vogt, and he is pumped. Move things on to the top of the seventh. Kieran Lovegrove, the official minor leaguer of Cespedes Family Barbecue, comes on, and he would strike out a batter in Varsho to end the inning. Jimmy Sherfy on for the Reno Aces in the bottom half of the frame. Breivik Valera pinch hitting for Lovegrove in the pitcher's spot, and Valera smacks one out into right field for a base knock, so he's on with 2 outs. He would proceed to try to swipe on the first pitch to Avellino, and the ball gets away from the man covering second, so he gets in there with the stolen base. Then Avellino, not the hardest hit ball, but it does land in for a single. Valera never stopped running, so he's able to score from second, and the Rivercats extend their lead to 3-1. Top of the ninth now, Carlos Navas comes on for the Rivercats. 2 outs, nobody on, and he gets a pop up to center field as that is your ball game. The Sacramento Rivercats win this one here at home against the Reno Aces by a score of 3-1. Tyler Rogers, a great day on the hill. He went 6 1/3 strong, only gave up 3 hits, struck out 3, only 1 earned run given up, and no walks from the Submariner. And before we move on to the DoubleA game, let's take a closer look at some of the players on our AAA team and how they have fared this season as the minor league season is about to come to an end. Connor Joe has been the best bat on the Sacramento Rivercats all season long. He has an .839 OPS that is 6th in the Pacific Coast League. He's got 14 home runs. He will definitely be up for September call-ups at the Major League level. It's just, I'm not sure what his role long-term is, because like I said last time, he's not the greatest defensively. He can hit, but he's not really going to fit anywhere. We don't need another first baseman, even if we do trade Belt. I guess he could fill in as a corner outfielder, but even then, he's not defensively good enough to even play every day in the field. So maybe he's more of a bench piece to use, or maybe he's just more of a 4A guy who gets called up and down consistently through our team. Casey Gillespie, our first baseman at the AAA level, he was actually signed early on in the season. I just didn't show it in a video for whatever reason. I didn't think it would be significant, but he has actually been quite decent at the AAA level. He's got an .833 OPS. You know, he's a switch-hitting first baseman. He's okay in the field. He's got good discipline. He's got decent hitting stats as well. Even at the Major League level, they're pretty decent. And let's just say that Brandon Belt does get traded in the offseason. Casey Gillespie is a guy who could get looked at for some time at the first base position. Obviously, it depends on what happens in the offseason. There's still a lot that can happen, but he is a guy who is an option there if we do need time at first base. Avellino was a guy who was in DoubleA for the last minor league update video. He has been called up to TripleA in 191 at-bats in TripleA. He has a .774 OPS. He is a guy who is already on the 40-man roster. He is definitely going to be up with the team in September call-ups. And I don't think, as far as his future, I don't think that he's going to be a guy who really ever gets a chance to start anywhere along the infield for us, but he's definitely a guy who can be a valuable bench piece. He's got some speed, he can get some hits, and he can play a little bit of a defense, so he can really play second, third, or short as a backup at the Major League level when we really need him to. Levi Michael is a guy who has spent most of the season on the IL in the minor leagues. He only has 50 ABs in AAA, but in those 50 ABs, he does have a .925 OPS, but they are in a very, very small sample size, so take that with a very small grain of salt. And what makes him valuable is he's not the greatest ratings-wise, he's not the greatest defensively, his reaction isn't really that great, but he's okay in pretty much everything, and he can play literally everywhere. You want to play first, you want to play second, third, short, left, center, right. He can play all those positions, and that's what makes him valuable, especially since we are not going to be bringing back Yangervis Solarte next season. So a guy like Levi Michael as a utility guy is definitely valuable to have in the organization. Ryder Jones is a guy who hit a home run in our last minor league update video, and he still does not hit. He's not going to be a guy who ever hits the Major League level, especially. He's not even hitting in AAA. He just can play a pretty good defensive third base. And he's still only 24, so I guess we might bring him back in AAA if I really feel like it, but I don't think he's ever really going to have a role in the organization. Mac Williamson is a guy who definitely won't be back next year. He has not hit this year despite hitting a home run in the video. He's already 28 years old. He'll be 29 next year. He's not a prospect anymore. He's not good. He can play some defense. That's it. He'll be with a different organization next year, assuming that someone picks him up. And I'm taking a look at some of the AAA pitchers. You've got Tyler Rogers, who is the guy who pitched in the video, a submariner who is actually a starting pitcher, and he's actually had a pretty decent year in AAA. Not mind-blowing by any means. He's not out there breaking records. He's not out there leading the league in anything, but he's had a decent year, and he pitched well in the game. He's a guy who I don't think would ever be a starter at the Major League level, but he could definitely be a bullpen piece for us, especially with how thin our bullpen is. Assuming, once again, that we don't sign anybody in the offseason, all these moves that I'm talking about could be completely useless if the offseason happens and there's someone we go out and sign. Plenty of things can happen in the offseason that changes things that I talk about, obviously. So, depending on what happens in the offseason, Tyler Rogers is a guy who could get looked at for a bullpen spot. Kieran Lovegrove, the official minor leaguer of Cespedes Family Barbecue, he was actually in DoubleA for the last minor league update video, and I called him up to AAA, and he's been pitching very well in AAA. In 28 innings pitched, he has a .64 ERA, that is a sub-1 ERA, and a 2.86 FIP as well. So he's been pitching pretty well, and he might be up in the September call-ups with the big league club. Carlos Navas, he was in DoubleA last time, also has been called up to AAA. He's got 25 strikeouts in 24 innings, a 3 ERA. He's probably a guy who will be up at the big league level as well for September call-ups. Now, a lot of these relievers who are going to get called up in September, They're going to be guys who maybe aren't going to be on the 40-man long term. I wouldn't have any problem taking them off the 40-man if we need to make room on the 40-man. These are guys who are just going to be in September because we have such a thin bullpen. I want to give a lot of different guys looks, and he's a guy who deserves a look. Yandel Gustave is a guy who I don't know if is going to be on the 40-man, but he's a guy who could probably deserve a look. He has 65 strikeouts and 50 2/3 innings pitched. He has a 5.51 ERA, but that is very misleading. He's got a 2.68 FIP, and he throws hard, and he's got a lot of pitches to work with. Even though none of his secondary pitches are really overpowering or really that good at all, he throws hard, throws about 98, 99 miles an hour, and he's got a lot of different pitches to use so he can mix and match things in order to be effective out of the bullpen. He's pitched in relief for the Astros in the past. I'm not sure if he really has a long-term future here at the organization, but he is a guy worth mentioning. Ray Black, still not pitching that well in AAA. He still throws hard as hell, obviously. He's still going to get a look in September at the Major League level. And now let's move on to the AA portion of this video. Let's take a look at the AA team, shall we? The Richmond Flying Squirrels taking on the Erie Seawolves here at Green Valley Stadium. The right-hander from the state of Arkansas, Ben Madison, getting the start for the Flying Squirrels, while toeing the slab for Erie will be the right-hander, Sandy Baez. And taking on Baez, lineup for Richmond, led by the big 2-3-4 of Bart, Ramos, and Greene. So bottom half of the first inning, leading off the game for Erie is Taylor Motter. Gets a hanging changeup, and he does not miss. He jacks one over the left field fence, a bomb to lead off the game, 1-0 for Erie. But after hitting the next batter up and putting him on base, he would be able to settle down, gets Cody Clemens to go down looking on a curveball on the outside half, and then the curveball again gets the next batter in Pinheiro to strike out. He would top it all off getting a ground out. Zach Greene to the plate for the Flying Squirrels in the top half of the second. 1-1 count. He's going to hit a ball into left field that'll land in for a base knock. The center fielder cuts it off in time to where it's only going to be a single. After that, it brings up Raynel Delgado, and Zach Greene's going to go show off his base-stealing prowess as he goes and swipes second. So 2-1 count on Delgado, the man acquired in the trade to the Indians that Sam Dyson was sent over there, and he hits an RBI, not double, he's not stopping at 2, an RBI triple for Raynel Delgado, ties this one up at 1. They would not be done there in the top of the second, though, as after that, Ronny Jean comes to the plate, hits a ball in the left field. It's going to be caught, but it's deep enough to tag up Delgado from third. A sac fly puts Richmond on top 2-1. They were not done there, though. Jing De Jiang, the thick catcher, comes to the plate with 2 outs. He's going to hit a ball into left center field. That'll get down into the gap, hit up off of a wall. Easy double for the thick boy Taiwanese catcher in Jing De Jiang. So he's over on second, and then Nick Allen's going to hit a ball that just barely stays fair. Jiang scores from second. RBI single for Nick Allen. 3-1 is the score. Move on to the top of the third. Jalen Miller at the plate. He's going to hit a ball into center field. Center fielder gives it a dive, but he misses it. It'll get past him. Left fielder cuts it off, but Miller's able to get into second base sliding for a double. So runner on second brings up Joey Bart in the 2-hole, and he's going to deliver. Joey Bart, the top prospect in the organization, with an RBI double, and Richmond extends their lead in this one to 4-1. Bottom of the third, Cody Clemens comes to the plate. First pitch, up in the zone. Oh no, Ben Madison, didn't you watch last year's College World Series? This is Cody Clemens. He absolutely pulverizes a ball over the right field fence. Take another look at this one. 456 feet, bat flipping all. Cody Clemens, the son of Roger, going yard. So 4-2 game now, bottom of the fourth, and Madison walks Bordeaux to put a man on first base. After that, it brings up Simcox as he hits the ball into right field for a base knock. Ramos' throw over to third holds the runner at second. So first and second, full count. and it's going to walk the veteran catcher of Bobby Wilson. So bases loaded, brings up Cameron Rupp, DHing on the day. Another catcher hits a ball into right field. That's an RBI single. 4-3 is the score, and that would also end Ben Madison's day. Seth Cory comes out of the pen, the hard-throwing left-hander. 2-2 count to Taylor Motter, goes down on the 98-mile-an-hour fastball. After that, it brings up Woodrow. He goes down as well. So one batter away from getting out of it. It's a 3-0 count to Cody Clemens. Gets it away from him, but he gets it back to 3-1. Then hits the outside corner again with a changeup, 3-2. And then he hits the up and in corner with the fastball, gets him looking, and Cory gets out of the bases loaded jam. Top of the 6th, Nick Allen, the shortstop who came over from the A's in the Mad Bum trade, is going to hit a bomb to left center field, and that puts the Flying Squirrels up 6-3 as it was a 2-run shot. Tyler Sear then comes on in a 6-4 game in the bottom of the 9th, and he would get Cody Clemens the pop up to right field, as that is the ball game. The Richmond Flying Squirrels are victorious here over the Erie Seawolves 6-4 in this ball game. Reynel Delgado gets player of the game honors. He was 2 for 4 on the day. Nick Allen was impressive. Jing De Jiang was impressive. Seth Cory gets the win for his 2 innings of work with 3 strikeouts to get out of that bases loaded jam. Sandy Baez the loss for them, and then Tyler Sear with the save for us. And before we wrap up this video, let's go over some of the other guys on the DoubleA roster more in depth. So first up on the list is Zach Greene. Zach Greene was the best overall player on the DoubleA team, Richmond Flying Squirrels, this season. He had an 847 OPS, which led the entire Eastern League. He had 18 home runs, which was second in the Eastern League. He scored 62 runs, also second in the Eastern League. And he's not just a guy who hits home runs and hits for power. He's also a guy who steals bags, too. Had 13 stolen bases on a team that led the Eastern League in stolen bases as an entire team. Needless to say, he was very impressive at the DoubleA level. He's not the most impressive prospect, though. He's not the most ideal prospect, because he's 25 years old. He's going to see potential. Next year, he'll be 26. He probably needs at least one more year of developing in minor leagues before I was really ready to call him up to the big leagues. But anything could happen. Maybe he'll get time at first base in the big leagues at some point in 2020. He can also play a little bit of third base, too, and he's got the ratings to play third base. So who knows, if Zach Greene continues to be this impressive, maybe I'll have no choice but to call him up to the big leagues, because next year, he will definitely be starting the year in TripleA. And Joey Bart, he's finally actually hitting. He's got a 764 OPS, which is top 5 in the Eastern League. He's got 13 home runs, so it's definitely what you like to see. The top prospect in the organization finally getting around and actually getting those stats to back up his hitting prowess that he's so highly regarded for. Brice Johnson, he's still dropped down to that D potential. He has not dropped. He's not came back up to a C, despite being third in the Eastern League in OPS. He's also second in doubles. He had 26. I believe he had 3 doubles in the first minor league update video, and he just continued that all year long as he, like I said, second in the Eastern League with 26. Ronny Jean, the center fielder, he was our 4th outfielder this year, and he had an 847 OPS, so he had a very good year coming off the bench for us. He is a very good defensive outfielder. He's very fast, can swipe a lot of bags. The thing about him, though, is despite him hitting that well at DoubleA level, he needs a lot of work at the plate before he can be looked at as a legitimate option in the big leagues, because he is not good at all at the plate. He is very raw, needs a lot of work. But if that bat does come around a bit, he could be a viable option in the center field position, because he is very good defensively, as I said, and very fast. Jalen Miller, second base prospect, he only has a 739 OPS, but that's just because he doesn't hit a lot of home runs. He doesn't slug very much. Basically, all he does is hit singles, a lot of them. He's got a 284 average and then a 370 OBP, so he gets on base a decent amount as well. It's just he needs to improve his ability to hit doubles if he's not going to hit home runs, because you need to be effective to hit doubles. You can't just be hitting singles, hitting slap singles all the time. Although it is encouraging to see that he walks that much. Jing De Jiang, the Taiwanese thick catcher. Not the greatest ratings, not the greatest stats, but he is a guy who we have in DoubleA this year, TripleA next year as a guy for catcher depth at the major league level. If we need somebody to get called up, he's probably a guy who could take over if we really needed a catcher. But right now, I would probably say our catcher depth chart is Buster Posey 1, 2 will probably be a Ramos Garcia, and then 3 is probably Joey Bart, and then 4 is Jing De Jiang. Depends on what happens in the offseason, as always when I go over these things mid-season, but as of right now, that's probably what it's looking like heading into next year. Seth Cory was very impressive in the actual video. He has 27 strikeouts and 22 2/3 innings pitched this year. He is technically a starting pitcher, but he has been pitching out of the bullpen for us because we have so many DoubleA starting pitchers that we've just been using a lot of them in the pen, and he's been impressive in the pen. A 2.78 ERA, but it's a little bit misleading. He's got a 4.01 FIP. So hopefully he can improve upon the FIP next year and continue pitching like that in the pen. He's a guy who can start for us if we really want him to, or he could be in the pen. I mean, he definitely showed that he can pitch in the pen if I really want him to in that game. And he is still only 20 years old, so he is definitely an interesting guy to keep an eye on throughout the organization. Groom, he has pitched very well in DoubleA. He had the prospect profile for us. In that video, I said that he was not in DoubleA for the Boston Red Sox, so he was in Class A, not picking up any stats. And then for us, he's having a very good year in DoubleA. 1.58 ERA, 2.8 FIP in 42 2/3 innings pitched. We'll probably end up in DoubleA next year as well, and then probably get called up like halfway through the year if he does well. But Groom, definitely what you like to see, him pitching very well in DoubleA. Logan Webb was the guy who had the most innings pitched on our DoubleA team, 145 2/3 innings. He had a 3.77 ERA, a 3.64 FIP. All around decent year, nothing spectacular. Aligns with him as a prospect. He's not a spectacular prospect. He's not going to blow anybody away, but he's a guy who maybe in 2-3 years down the line, if he has another good year, maybe his potential gets boosted, he can actually be a pretty interesting prospect. So he's a guy worth keeping an eye on. Connor Menez, basically another Seth Cory, but a bit older. I think he's like 23. Not the best year statistically, but he is a left-handed pitcher who throws hard, so he could be a guy who, if he puts together, once again, like Logan Webb, if he puts together a solid year or two, maybe has a lot of development, goes through a lot of training, he could be a guy who could be interesting. Ben Madison, the starting pitcher from the video, having a decent year at the DoubleA level, but not a very good game in the video. He did not look all that good at all. He did not feel good to pitch with. Basically every pitch that I threw with Ben Madison in that game felt like I had absolutely no idea where it was going to go. It didn't matter if I had a perfect release on it. Didn't matter if I had a good release. Just, if I threw a fastball up and in, that ball could have gone dead center on the plate, even if I got a perfect release. I just had no clue where anything was. But with that being said, that is going to wrap things up here for this edition of the Giants franchise, the AAA and AA minor league update video, the second of the 2019 season, and that'll be wrapping up the minor league season. Next episode will be 3 September games in the major leagues, and the next episode after that will be the off-season video. So we are chugging along here through the first season. Off-season should be very interesting. I've been your host, Jerseyborn, and I am saying, Tim Anderson, go off, King!